Okay, guys, we're starting a new unit today, Unit 4A. And the main theme of the unit is graphs of quadratic equations. Quadratic equations we're going to start learning about. Now, a quadratic equation is essentially an equation that has its highest exponent of 2, which you'll see below. So we're on page 3 here. We're going to start introducing. We're not going to be graphing today, just introducing what the equations look like. So there's some vocabulary. The graph that we're going to draw today is going to be called a parabola. It's shaped like a U opening up or opening down. The vertex is referring to the minimum or maximum point. That would be like a vertex, if I were to zoom in here, would be a point here or a point here. It's kind of the starting point when we graph something. So next up is the Axis of Symmetry, also known as AOS. It just separates the left and the right side. So if I were to have what an axis of symmetry would look like would be a dotted line going down. It's invisible, and then it would separate your parabola, the left side and the right side of the parabola, making it like a mirror image. Next is, still on axis of symmetry, just going down a little bit. The AOS is a vertical line, as I just said. It passes through the vertex always. Below, we're going to have to write an equation for the AOS. It's going to be x equals a number, and that number will be whatever the x coordinate is of the vertex. So there's two types of two forms of quadratic equations we're going to deal with today. The first one is called standard form, and as you can see, the equation to the right is it's in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Even though it looks like a pretty easy form, it's actually the harder of the two to graph out of. So whenever we're finding the vertex, we got to do a little bit of math. We're going to have to find the x value first by using this formula here. It's to find x, we take the opposite of b and divide it by 2 times a, and that would give us whatever the x coordinate is. Then after that, to find the y coordinate, we would plug in the number that we just got for the x's and then use PEMDAS, or order of operations. Vertex form, we can see here, y equals a parentheses, blah, blah, blah. And that one's really easy to find the vertex there. You just literally can look at what h is and k is, and that would be your point, your xy coordinates of your vertex. Now, I do want to point out something, though. Notice how the formula has a minus sign in front of the h. So when we have that, h looks opposite. H looks opposite. All right, so next up, we have parabolas that open up. That is when, if we look at the a, the number right after the equal sign, if it's positive, it opens up. If a is a negative, if we have a negative right after the equal sign, then that parabola would open downward. Okay, let's get into some examples here. We're going to do 4 different things. So in example 1, we can see that it is in, well, if it's in parentheses, if you see parentheses, we're going to call it vertex form. If you don't see parentheses, we're automatically going to call it standard form. So next, let's find the vertex. Now, since this is in standard form, we have to find x first, do negative b divided by 2 times a. B here is actually missing. This, if I wrote it out, would be 1x squared plus 0x minus 5. Notice the minus 5 doesn't have a variable. That means that minus 5 is the C. So A, B, C. So that would be 0 divided by 2 times 1, which is 0. Now after that, you would then figure out what your y-coordinate is. So you would have to take the 0 that we just got, and you would plug it in for the x, as the directions say. So y equals 0 squared minus 5. That would be 0 minus 5 is negative 5. So my vertex to this problem, finally, is 0, negative 5. We write it as an ordered pair. The axis of symmetry, come on. The axis of symmetry, letter C, is an equation, x equals, and the number I choose will be 0, because that's the x-coordinate of my vertex. And then letter D, the direction of the opening, is it going to open up or down? We take a look at A. A is an invisible 1. It's a positive number. Therefore, when we eventually draw this, it will open upward. Okay, let's try another one. Now this guy is in, I see parentheses, so automatically we're going to call that vertex form. This is the easier one. The vertex is HK. And remember, as I said, H looks opposite, so the H is 4, the K is 1. Letter C, the axis of symmetry, x equals, and it will be 4. As I said, it is the x-coordinate of the vertex. Always gets repeated for the AOS. And then D, will it open up or down? Look where the A is. A would be right here. That's an invisible positive 1. So that means it's positive, it opens up. The only way it would ever open down is if you have a negative immediately after the equal sign. Okay, example 3. There are no parentheses. This is in standard form. So A is negative 2, B is 8, C is 3. So we're going to now need to get the vertex. So we got to start off x equals negative b, or opposite of b, divided by 2 times a. So multiply and divide. So the x-coordinate is 2. Now we need to find the y-coordinate. So we need to take that 2, and we're going to plug it in for the x's in the original formula. So negative 2 times 2 squared, use parentheses when you're plugging in, plus 8 times 2 plus 3. And I'm going to use order of operations here. Got to be careful. What would come first would be squared, exponent here. So negative 2 times the 2 squared becomes 4. Then after that I can multiply and multiply and then add those numbers together. Negative 8 plus 16 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So I would say my vertex, write it as an ordered pair, 2, 11. My AOS, axis of symmetry, x equals 2 from the x-coordinate of the vertex. And then D, would it open up or down? Now this guy, look at the A. The A is a negative. Therefore, if we were to graph this, it would open down. Example 4. Let's label A is -1, B is 2, C is 4, and obviously this is standard form. All right, now let's do the work to get the vertex. X equals opposite of B divided by 2 times A. So that would be -2 over 2 times 1. And that simplifies to -1. Now we want to get the y coordinate. So we're plugging in -1 for the x's. And be careful, you do have a negative right after the equal sign. So negative parentheses -1 squared plus 2 times -1 plus 4. What operation comes first? You should be saying exponent. So this negative, after the equal sign, just drop that down for now. Then you're doing -1 squared, which is 1. And then we can multiply to get -2, and then add -1 minus 2 is -3, plus 4 is 1. So I'm going to write my vertex as an ordered pair, -1, 1, xy. Letter C, axis of symmetry, x equals, what would it be? It would be this guy here, the x coordinate of your vertex always, -1. And then letter D, that is, does it open up or down? Go back to the equation, look at the A. The A is negative right after the equal sign. This would open down if we were to graph it. Okay, we got a few more to go. Almost done. The next one, as I said, when it's not parentheses, you're going to have standard form. For the axis of symmetry, let's write this out. I would say this would be -1x squared. The -3 does not have a variable. That's the c. So a is -1, minus 3 is the c. There is no b, so that's like saying plus 0x. So the b is 0. So for our formula, x equals -b divided by 2 times a, that would be 0 over 2 times -1. And whenever the b is 0, the x coordinate's going to be 0. And then the y coordinate, we're going to take the 0 and plug it in for the x here. So that would be -0 squared minus 3. 0 squared is just 0, and there's no such thing as a -0, so we'll call it 0 minus 3 is -3. So your vertex is 0, -3. Okay, and side little shortcut to know, a little hint for the future is whenever your b is 0, your x coordinate of your vertex is always going to be 0. Next up, letter C is the AOS. That would be x equals 0. Make sure when you're doing your own work, when you're doing the part where it says AOS, make sure to always start with the x equals. And letter D, does it open up or down? The A right after the equal sign is another negative. So if we were to graph that, that would open down. Number 2, I see the parentheses there. That is vertex form. Much easier to find the vertex. Remember HK. So that would be 5, 3. So much faster. Remember, H is opposite. So notice I didn't write -5, I wrote 5. C, what is the axis of symmetry? That would be x equals 5. Again, that comes from right here. And does it open up or down? Right after the equal sign, A is a -3. And that's going to open down. And last, we finish with a standard form. No parentheses, it's standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so the a is a 1, by the way, b is 14, and c is negative 2. So let's do that math to find out what the vertex is. So to find x, negative b divided by 2 times a. So that would be negative 14 divided by 2 times 1. So we multiply and then divide. All right, so there's the x coordinate. Now let's find the y coordinate. So I'm going to take this negative 7. I'm going to sub it in for the x's here and here to find, and then find y. So that would be negative 7 squared. Again, be careful with parentheses. When you're plugging a negative in for a variable, use parentheses carefully, or else it can screw up your exponent operations. All right, let's do our exponent first. And then we can multiply. Minus 98, and then we can add. That would be negative 49 minus 2 is negative 51. So our vertex is negative 7, negative 51. Letter C, our AOS, axis of symmetry, is x equals negative 7. And letter D, does it open up or down? Go back to your equation. A is a positive 1. When it's positive, it's going to open up. Okay, guys, remember, as you are going through this, if at any point I went too fast, make sure you're pausing and rewinding. Feel free to watch this lesson more than once. You got to do what you got to do to learn this stuff. All right, my lesson is done. Have a